The night rain poured down in torrents, the darkness so thick it seemed ready to swallow the entire city. On the cold, wet road, a car spun out of control, screeching with a terrifying brake. The deafening clash of metal echoed through the night, then everything fell into silence. Scarlet ran to the scene, her breath ragged, her whole body trembling. Before her, Caleb lay motionless on the ground, blood soaking through his shirt in a crimson flood. She collapsed to her knees, cradling him in her arms, her trembling hands pressing desperately against the wound, but the blood kept gushing, hot, searing, reeking of iron. "Caleb! Don't close your eyes. Look at me, please, don't leave me." Her voice broke, every word tearing through her chest. Caleb's vision blurred, his lashes quivering. He felt Scarlet's arms clinging to him tightly, so warm it made his heart convulse one last time. A violent cough escaped his lips, blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. Scarlet's face faded into a haze before his eyes, yet her heart-rending sobs echoed like a dying melody. The moment his heartbeat ceased, Caleb felt himself unravel. His soul drifted free, hovering above, staring at the lifeless body lying in Scarlet's embrace. She wept until her strength failed, holding him as if she could tether his life back into existence. That scene carved itself into his soul. Death itself did not frighten Caleb, what crushed him was the unbearable agony of seeing Scarlet collapse in despair. His gaze grew cold. That wavering, ghostly soul turned toward the shadows. His lips moved, his voice no longer trembling like in life, but resounding like an oath etched in blood. "The Reed family, you destroyed everything. I will never forgive you. Even if I must trade away my soul, I will make you pay, tenfold, 100-fold." Thunder cracked across the sky, as if the heavens bore witness to his vow. Scarlet clutched his body tighter, unaware that at the very moment Caleb's life ended, a seed of vengeance had been sown, a seed that would one day drag him back through time itself. From the flames of his death, Caleb's oath ignited, a promise that would pierce through life and death, carrying him back to the past to rewrite it all. The blaze roared, painting the night sky in red. Fire alarms wailed, mingling with the howling wind that sounded like the cries of restless souls. Scarlet stood in the shadows, her eyes gleaming coldly as she watched the inferno consume the Grand Reed estate. Inside, Tiffany Reed shrieked in panic. The main doors were sealed, black smoke rising in thick, suffocating waves. She clawed at the walls, pounded the doors, screaming until her voice broke. "Scarlet! Are you insane? Open the door. You're going to kill me." A low chuckle echoed in the night. Scarlet stepped forward slowly, her heels tapping against the tiles like the tolling of fate. The fire reflected in her eyes, so hauntingly beautiful, yet terrifying, like a demon risen from hell. "I don't just want to kill you, Tiffany," Scarlet's voice cut through the night, chilling and resolute. "I want you to watch everything you've ever had burn to ashes." Tiffany trembled, staggering backward, coughing violently as the smoke clawed at her throat. What have you done? Where's my family?" Scarlet smiled, her lips curled into a blood-stained grin. Leaning closer, she whispered each word like a dagger plunging into Tiffany's chest. "Your parents, your brother, they're all dead. I sent them off one by one, letting them taste the same despair Caleb once endured. Their blood is still warm on my hands." Tiffany's face drained of all color, her eyes widened in terror. She shook her head frantically, refusing to believe what she had just heard. But Scarlet stepped nearer, lowering her voice to deliver an even crueler secret. "And your precious boyfriend? I sold him to the underground syndicate. By now, he's nothing more than a cheap plaything in their hands. That's the gift I left for your so-called love." Tiffany's scream ripped through the night, echoing with despair. She collapsed amid the smoke, her trembling hands clutching at nothing. But Scarlet did not falter. Bathed in the blazing firelight, she stood tall, regal, merciless, a queen carved from cruelty, her eyes devoid of all compassion. The flames devoured the mansion piece by piece. Tiffany was trapped in her burning hell, while Scarlet turned her back, her hair whipping in the searing wind. She never once looked behind, leaving Tiffany's final cries to be swallowed whole by the inferno. In that moment, Scarlet was no longer the fragile woman who once wept in Caleb's arms. She had become the blade of fate itself, carrying out Caleb's blood oath, to annihilate the Reed family, sparing not a single soul from vengeance. Suddenly, a blinding light tore through the darkness, ripping Caleb's soul away from the carnage and the raging flames. It felt as though he were plummeting into an endless abyss, until an icy chill surged through him. His eyes snapped open, the blood, the fire, Scarlet's broken sobs, all gone. Instead, he found himself staring at a familiar room, sunlight streaming gently through the curtains. Caleb bolted upright, sweat dripping down his forehead, his heart racing wildly. This is my room," he whispered, voice trembling. His hand flew to his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat. No mortal wound, no death. For a brief moment, he thought it might all have been a dream. But then, the phone on his nightstand buzzed. He picked it up, and the date flashing across the screen froze him in place. 2 years earlier. The exact point before all the tragedies began. Rebirth, Caleb breathed, his lips curving into a bitter yet resolute smile. Heaven had given him another chance. This time, he swore, Scarlet would never shed a single tear. And the Reed family would never again have the power to touch his life. Just then, the door swung open. Tiffany Reed stepped inside, draped in a sheer nightgown, her lips curled in smug amusement. "Caleb, you're up early again? Didn't last night wear you out enough?" Before Tiffany could finish her words, Caleb shot up to his feet, his gaze icy cold. The image of Scarlet collapsing in tears beside his lifeless body, along with Tiffany's cruel, mocking laughter from the past, stabbed into his heart like a blade. Hatred surged within him, yet he forced himself to stay composed. "Tiffany Reed," Caleb cut her off, his voice low and hoarse, "get out of my house. Right now." Tiffany froze, her eyes widening in shock before curling into mockery. "What are you saying? I'm your girlfriend. Or did you forget the Reed family's reputation will be the key to your success?" Caleb stepped closer, each stride pushing Tiffany backward. The aura around him was no longer weak and submissive, but cold and razor-sharp, like a beast cornered and baring its fangs. "The Reed family's reputation," he growled. "From this day forward, I don't need it. I would rather lose everything than remain entangled with a venomous snake like you. Don't ever appear before me again." Tiffany's eyes widened in fury, stunned by the defiance she had never seen from him. "You've gone mad. Without the Reeds, you're nothing. You'll regret ever crossing me." Caleb let out a laugh, but it carried only contempt. "No, Tiffany. The one who will regret this is you. I will make you witness the day the Reed family collapses, each and every one of you." He pulled the door open, his command sharp as steel. "Out. Now." Under the weight of his chilling stare, Tiffany had no choice but to storm out, her heels clattering loudly against the floor in fury. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing the silence of the room. Caleb stood there for a long time, drawing in a deep breath. His heart was heavy with hatred, but within that darkness flickered a fragile light of hope. This time, he knew clearly who was his enemy, and who was the one he had to protect. Scarlet. He swore he would never let her face the world alone again. Beyond the window, the brilliant light of dawn spilled into the room, heralding a new beginning. Caleb clenched his fist, flames of determination blazing in his eyes. This time, he would rewrite his destiny. Caleb sat alone in the dimly lit room, the glow from the lamp casting shadows across his cold expression. He had just cast Tiffany out of his life, yet his chest still ached, not from losing her, but from the torrent of memories crashing back from his previous life, so vivid they suffocated him. In that past life, he had once loved Tiffany with blind devotion. Loved her to the point of ignoring every warning, loved her so foolishly that he became the laughingstock of the entire city. Friends, business partners, even strangers sneered at him, a talented man ruined by his obsession with a woman. He had shut his eyes to Tiffany's schemes, endured every wound she inflicted, all for the hollow title of the man by Tiffany Reed's side. And throughout all of those wasted years, there was Scarlet. Caleb closed his eyes, his heart tightening as her image surfaced. Scarlet, the childhood friend, the one who had walked beside him through the darkest days of his life. He remembered when he was just a boy, his parents had died suddenly in an accident, leaving Caleb adrift in a ruthless world. It was Scarlet who held his hand, pulling him back from the abyss of despair. She was neither wealthy nor powerful, yet with sheer resilience and sincerity, she became the only anchor that kept him alive. In those days of poverty, when the two of them had to split a single loaf of bread, Scarlet never once complained. On the contrary, she secretly gave him the larger portion, bearing the hunger herself. Later, when Caleb began rebuilding his life from nothing, Scarlet was always the one standing behind him. She worked tirelessly, managing everything so that he could focus entirely on creating a future. She endured countless slanders, countless humiliations, but she never uttered a word of resentment. And yet, he forgot, blinded by his obsession with Tiffany. Caleb brushed aside all of Scarlet's advice, even treating her with cold indifference. He remembered her eyes that day, when he openly held Tiffany's hand right in front of her, eyes filled with pain she struggled to conceal, like a knife twisting in his chest. Worse still, Scarlet once had a chance to change her fate. A distinguished family once proposed marriage to her, offering her stability and security. But Scarlet declined. The reason was simple, because Caleb didn't want her to go. Back then, he had carelessly uttered a single line, "Don't leave me." And Scarlet, foolishly loyal, obeyed. Caleb opened his eyes, tilting his head back as he drew a trembling breath. A single tear slid down, mingling with his tormenting regret. "Scarlet," he whispered her name, his voice choked. "In my past life, I betrayed you. I let you die in despair, in loneliness, when the only person you wanted to protect abandoned you instead." Memories surged before him like a film reel. Scarlet, collapsing in the fire, her eyes still searching for him though he was nowhere near. She protected him until her last breath, while he had been embracing a venomous snake like Tiffany. Caleb clenched his fists, nails digging into his flesh. The sting of physical pain was nothing compared to the agony in his heart. "This time," he murmured, his eyes igniting in the dark, "I will never lose you again. Even if I must pay with my life, I will protect Scarlet, and atone for every sin of my past." Outside the window, the night lay still and heavy. Yet inside Caleb's heart, a new flame had been kindled, a flame of resolve, of unspoken love, and of a vow to rewrite destiny. The memories kept flooding back like an unstoppable torrent, dragging Caleb into the years of youth he had once wished to bury. Back in college, Caleb had never been untalented. On the contrary, he was bright, ambitious, full of potential. But all of that meant nothing once his heart became ensnared by Tiffany. Scarlet was the one who paid every tuition fee, every meal. Her family was not wealthy, in fact, they had to scrimp and save every penny. Yet Scarlet never let Caleb go without. He went to school on the money she earned from exhausting part-time jobs. He had books, a place to stay, all thanks to her. And yet, when Tiffany appeared, everything else in Caleb's eyes suddenly grew dim. He began spending recklessly to please her, lavish gifts, extravagant parties, impulsive trips. The money Scarlet sent him, he didn't hesitate to pour it all into Tiffany. When it wasn't enough, Caleb turned to loan sharks. He told himself that if he endured a little, he could earn it back later and repay everything. But the spiral of debt only grew deeper, dragging him further into the abyss. Scarlet found out, her eyes that day were filled with disappointment, yet she never turned her back on him. "Caleb," she once said, her voice trembling but resolute, "you're walking down the wrong path. Tiffany isn't worth sacrificing your future for." And how did he respond? He scoffed, answering coldly, "Scarlet, you don't understand. Tiffany is the only one who makes me feel truly alive. I need her." Those words, remembering them now, cut into his heart like a blade, but Scarlet did not leave. She continued to cover his debts, running everywhere to find help, even selling her little house to save him from the creditors. And what did Caleb do in return? He sank even deeper into that toxic romance. He openly walked beside Tiffany, leaving Scarlet behind him, a mere shadow. The height of his blindness was when the Reed family, Tiffany's family, faced bankruptcy. Caleb had nothing left, but Scarlet. She stepped forward to save them. He still remembers that night clearly, Scarlet staying up without rest, begging and negotiating with partners everywhere, gathering every resource she could to turn the tide. It was her persistence, her unyielding determination, that saved the Reed family from collapse. And yet, what was the outcome? The one who was praised, the one celebrated as the savior of the Reed family, was Caleb. Tiffany clung to him in front of everyone, sweetly declaring, "You're the hero who saved my family." While Scarlet, the one who had sacrificed everything, could only stand silently in the background, her eyes heavy with sorrow. Caleb, at the time, never realized it. He was still naively proud, believing he had truly been the hero. He even turned to Scarlet and said, each word sharp as a blade, "See? Tiffany trusts me. She needs me. I chose right." Scarlet didn't reply. She only forced a faint smile, so fragile it made the entire night feel even colder. Now, looking back, Caleb feels his heart twist in agony. Every memory lashes at his soul like a whip. The path he once chose was nothing but mistakes, leaving Scarlet to bear all the pain in his place. If not for Scarlet, Caleb wouldn't even be alive, let alone standing proudly beside Tiffany to boast. But in his blindness, he betrayed her, abandoned her, cast aside the only woman who had always been there for him. Caleb lifted his head, his eyes filled with anguish. "Scarlet," he whispered into the night, his voice breaking. "I owe you a lifetime." When he opened his eyes again in this life, Caleb knew everything had changed. He was no longer the arrogant fool who recklessly chased after Tiffany, nor did he dare to belittle Scarlet's love. The painful memories of her death, of the irreversible loss, burned like fire within his soul. That was why, this time, Caleb chose a different path. He lowered his pride, humbled himself, and tried with all his strength to win back Scarlet's trust. In the quiet room, he carefully brought her a cup of tea, placing it before her as he spoke softly, "Scarlet, rest a little. Let me handle everything." Scarlet looked up, her gaze cold as ice. Never before had Caleb humbled himself to this extent. She could not believe he had truly changed overnight. All she felt inside was a bitter irony. "What game are you playing now?" Scarlet asked, her voice calm but edged with caution. Caleb only shook his head, offering no defense. He silently set the tea down. His patience, his silence, it only deepened her suspicion. The man who once scoffed at her words, who had always looked down on her, now stood before her as meek as a servant. No, Scarlet could not believe it. That night, she took the leather whip she usually used for training horses and stepped toward him. Her eyes shone with unwavering resolve, as if to pierce straight into his soul. "Caleb, do you think a few sweet words are enough for me to forgive everything? No. If you're truly repentant, then prove it." She raised the whip and struck across his back. The sharp crack cut through the air, followed by a vivid red mark searing his skin. Caleb trembled slightly, but not a sound escaped his lips. He only clenched his fists and bit down, enduring in silence. You think I'll go soft? Scarlet's cold voice cut through the stillness as the whip came down again. I won't let you deceive me ever again. Blow after blow, Caleb accepted them all, no dodging, no resistance. The pain in his heart far outweighed the pain in his flesh, for he knew each lash was the wound Scarlet had borne in her past life. If this was the only way she could release her rage, the only path for her to eventually accept him, then he was willing. Scarlet, he rasped, his breath ragged yet his gaze unyielding, hate me, strike me, punish me as you wish. I only beg you for one thing, don't leave me again. Scarlet froze for a moment. In his eyes, there was no longer the shadow of the arrogant man he once was, only torment and submission. Her heart trembled faintly, but reason quickly pulled her back. How long can you endure? She asked coldly. Don't forget, you once made promises before. Caleb lowered his head, his voice firm. For the rest of my life, I will prove it. Even if you see me as nothing more than a slave, I will never resent you. Those words left Scarlet momentarily speechless. She tightened her grip on the whip, a complex storm rising in her chest. The man before her was both hateful and pitiful, yet more dangerous than ever, because Scarlet knew, if she wavered, Caleb would once again step into her world. And this time, she wasn't sure she had the strength to endure another betrayal. After those cold lashes of the whip, one would think Caleb would gradually drift away. But instead, he grew more obedient, more persistent in staying by Scarlet's side. Each morning, he quietly prepared breakfast, tending to every little detail of her daily life. When Scarlet left for work, he would stand silently, watching her go, his steady gaze like a wordless vow. This lifetime, he would never leave her again. Scarlet noticed the change. At first, she believed Caleb was merely putting on an act. Yet day by day, through his small acts of devotion, the thick ice encasing her heart began to show the slightest cracks. One late evening, after a long meeting, Scarlet collapsed wearily onto the sofa. Caleb immediately approached, placing a warm towel on her shoulders, his voice low and gentle. You've worked hard. Let me massage you. Scarlet was about to brush him off, but when his hands settled softly on her shoulders, the patience and sincerity in every movement silenced her. Bathed in the warm golden glow of the lamp, Scarlet suddenly whispered, half a warning, half an admission, Caleb, remember this. You belong to me. Forever. Caleb froze. If those words had been spoken in the past, he would have laughed, dismissed them as Scarlet's domineering attempt to control him. But now, his heart throbbed violently, his chest burning as though aflame. Slowly, he answered, his tone resolute, I know. And I want it that way. From that moment, Caleb began to truly realize his feelings. It was no longer the blind obsession he once had for Tiffany, but a fervent, aching love for Scarlet, the only one who had remained by his side, even when he betrayed her. He started taking the initiative, brushing her hand with his, holding her gaze without shying away, his eyes filled with unspoken tenderness. Scarlet, too, felt the shift. Her heart wavered. Yet just as warmth began to bloom between them, a storm descended. At a crowded charity gala, Tiffany suddenly appeared. Still arrogant, painted in dazzling makeup, she strutted in as if to provoke Scarlet outright. Approaching them, her voice laced with venom, she sneered, Caleb, have you forgotten who you once swore never to abandon? Or are you clinging to Scarlet only for her money? The words made countless eyes in the hall turn toward them. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Scarlet remained calm, yet deep within her gaze, a cold gleam flickered. She was ready to face humiliation, but Caleb stepped forward, shielding Scarlet, his eyes dark and colder than ever. Tiffany, that's enough. His voice was low, sharp as a blade cutting through the air. The only woman I acknowledge is Scarlet. She is my honor. And you, his teeth clenched, his hand suddenly swung. A sharp slap echoed, imprinting itself on Tiffany's heavily made-up face. The entire hall fell silent. Tiffany froze, clutching her cheek in disbelief, while Caleb stared at her with disdain. I was a fool to have ever chosen you. From this moment on, never dare lay a hand on Scarlet again. She is my woman. Scarlet trembled slightly, her heartbeat quickening. Never before had she seen Caleb so resolute, never before had he stood so openly by her side before so many people. In his eyes now, there was no hesitation, no trace of Tiffany, only her, Scarlet, the woman he vowed to protect. That night, when they returned, Scarlet stayed silent for a long time. Caleb, however, knelt before her, grasping her hand with a hoarse voice. Scarlet, give me a chance. Let me stay by your side, this time, for real. Scarlet's heart quivered, as if a new turning point had opened between them. After the stormy banquet, the air between Scarlet and Caleb began to shift. It seemed the icy walls surrounding Scarlet were starting to crack. In the days that followed, she no longer maintained her absolute distance. She was still the proud, strong woman everyone knew, yet in fleeting moments, Caleb caught glimpses of a different Scarlet, gentle, fragile, and a little awkward when it came to showing affection. One evening, Scarlet returned late after finishing work. In the living room, Caleb had already prepared a simple dinner, a bowl of hot soup and a few warm dishes. He grew a little nervous when she appeared, quickly saying, I don't know if this suits your taste, but I don't want you to tire yourself out too much. Scarlet paused, staring at the steaming food. For so many years, she had grown used to taking care of herself. No one had ever been this considerate. The corners of her lips curved faintly, but she quickly turned away, afraid he would notice. Her voice softened, no longer as cold as usual. It's not bad. Eat with me. In that moment, Caleb realized, Scarlet was beginning to open her heart. That night, in the quiet room, Caleb gently took her hand, his gaze sincere. Scarlet, do you know? You're the one who raised me, guided me, gave me everything. I was nurtured by you, and in this lifetime I can only ever belong to you. That confession caught Scarlet off guard. Her well-guarded heart trembled slightly, as if a stream of warmth had finally broken through. She did not reply, but her eyes softened, and for the first time, she allowed Caleb to hold her for a long while. From that day on, their relationship changed completely. No longer were there cold distances, no longer the suffocating weight of power or obligation. They became true lovers, both passionate and deeply connected. Caleb seemed reborn, every touch, every glance carried sincere longing. Scarlet, though outwardly still composed and aloof, revealed in her trembling breaths and delicate gestures a tenderness only Caleb was allowed to see. One morning, pale golden sunlight poured into the bedroom. Scarlet sat before the mirror, her long hair cascading loosely down her back. Caleb came up behind her, gently wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing a tender kiss to her shoulder. Scarlet looked into the mirror and met his gaze, clear, steadfast, like an unspoken vow. Without another word, Scarlet opened a drawer and retrieved a simple silver wedding band. It was the ring she had kept but never worn, unwilling to acknowledge a half-hearted bond. Yet today, faced with Caleb's unwavering devotion, and the changes within her own heart, she slowly slipped the ring onto her ring finger. Caleb froze. His grip on her hand tightened, his voice hoarse with emotion. Scarlet, you truly accept me now? Scarlet tilted her head slightly, the corner of her lips curving into a rare smile. Her voice was soft, stripped of its former sharpness. From now on, you are mine. And you are also my husband. Unable to contain himself, Caleb lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was no longer forceful or demanding, but the union of two hearts that had endured too many wounds. They held each other in the morning light as though the rest of the world no longer existed. At last, their love was sealed. No more games of power, no more scars from the past, only Caleb's wholehearted devotion and Scarlet's gently unfolding warmth, as they stepped into a new beginning together.